Well, it's good to be back here in Milwaukee despite the temperature. It's been a while since we've been here. It was back in October. And we wanted to get everybody together to talk a little bit about a few things about impeachment and also about the state Democratic field and where things are moving. Convention's going to be here in a couple of months. So just to start with, a lot's happened on impeachment in this last week. Is there any feeling around the table, with everybody here, that the feelings about whether or not it was the right move have changed, whether or not it feels like it's moving in a different direction now? Has the impeachment debate changed? Are people paying attention to it?
I certainly think it was the right thing to do because it's not necessarily about Trump. It's about a future president that may attempt some of these same tricks and tactics, and we have to send a message and set a tone that these things are not okay.
I think it's important to hold someone accountable, so at least that has been made clear that he's held accountable. And what the outcome is, we don't know that, but at least there was an effort made to do that.
And I think we do know the outcome. He's going to be exonerated, and that's why people are not engaged in the process because they think it's a waste of time. The Marquette poll of this week stated that the majority of Wisconsinites don't think they should continue with the process because they know the outcome, and it's really just a distraction. I agree with Sherwood on it. They needed to impeach him, but it's not going anywhere. And maybe people are saying, address some of the pertinent issues facing us.
I would agree. The impeachment process, I think, was important for the American public, but I wouldn't rely on it to win the next election. I think folks are disengaged because it seems like an issue that doesn't impact them. Meanwhile, folks are worrying about their day-to-day lives, how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to pay their bills, that sort of thing.
And the debate that they're having in Washington now, which is should they have witnesses at the trial? Should they not have witnesses at the trial? Do you hear anything, Ruben, do you hear anything from people around here about it?
You know, I think, again, when black people hear white people saying we're a country of laws, we're like, that's what we've been saying, and it's falling on deaf ears when it comes to issues, when it comes to justice in the black community. So to expect us to jump up now and all of a sudden be on one side or the other about this, the country of laws, it just, we're just not there.
Yeah. Does it feel like it's all, does it ultimately feel like it's all for nothing, or it's an exercise that had to happen that ultimately leads nowhere and they should wrap it up as soon as possible? What's your feeling about just what should happen in the trial as we move forward?
It's a good civics lesson because I think a lot of people thought impeachment means he leaves office, he goes to jail, and then you automatically get a new president. A lot of folks don't know the details and the granular nature of impeachment, so I think it's good for that. Other than that, not much else.
I would agree. I think it was a great civics lesson, but I think folks would like to see Congress get to business and start working on behalf of the people.
Yeah. And of course, one of the reasons we're here in Milwaukee, the reason we came originally is we're going to have an election that's going to deal with all this stuff in 11 months. So, the other thing that's changed a lot since we came here in October is the field looks very different. The Democratic field, a lot of people have exited the field. It's like, what are the consensus around the table? What do you think about the field as it's shaking out right now? It's a lot whiter, frankly, than it was 2-3 months ago. Any thoughts about just how things have moved so far?
I think it just speaks to the issues that are important to folks. I think a majority of the candidates that we've seen on the debate stage lately have shown affinity towards more progressive values, a more radical approach to attacking government issues.
Well, from my perspective, having quote-unquote minority candidates open up the door of possibility that they would discuss some issues that were pertinent to black America. We won't hear anything else. Even the last debate, they talk about early childhood development, but here in Milwaukee we have we lead the nation in 7 negative social indicators, and at the top of the list is education. We have the smallest percentage of black children who are proficient in reading in 4th and 8th grade in the country. We have one of the highest dropout rates. And they're talking about college, free college. Most of our kids won't get that far. So at least we thought with Corey or Harris in there, or Castro, that they would address some of the issues of importance to our community. Now there's no incentive whatsoever to discuss that because they're the Pied Pipers in black America myself included, is going to vote for the Democratic candidate, whoever it is. The question is, will there be a level of enthusiasm as there was with Barack Obama? I don't think so.
Thank you, and I found my point. So I lost it there. I think we've relied on identity politics in the past. We've relied on how to attract black voters is to get a black candidate. How to attract women voters is to get a woman candidate. But folks are like really struggling. They want someone that's going to raise wages. They want someone that's going to address student debt and affordable college and affordable housing and prison reform and immigration reform. And unfortunately, some of our minority candidates weren't speaking about those issues. And that just goes to show no one's going to vote for you just because they look like you or identify with you. They're going to vote for those that are going to fight on their behalf.
And Donna, you've held watch parties for some of the debates anyway at your church. I mean, what do you hear from the parishioners who come and watch the debate? Are they saying these kinds of things in terms of, I'm not hearing the issues I need to hear? Or?
Yeah, sadly, I think we're relegated now to just the fact that we need a candidate that can beat the current president. You know, instead of the important issues, instead of qualifications, now who can beat the current candidate or the current president? And so that's sad to me that we have kind of pushed aside the other candidates and their qualifications. And again, I agree. Initially, people were excited about the wide scope of candidates, those of color, although that's not always the key. But at least we had some choices. But now I think our voice has been limited.
Yeah. Is there, around the table, is the number one, because of where we are, is it just all about being Donald Trump right now? And does it matter with the field that's left among the Democrats? Does it matter right now who ends up being the nominee in terms of whether you get the turnout you need? Look, Milwaukee, they didn't get the turnout it needed or the turnout Democrats wanted in 2016 to win the state. It's one of the reasons Hillary Clinton lost Wisconsin. She didn't come here. Does it make a difference who the candidate is in terms of being able to get the vote out?
At this point, it may be centered on who the candidate's running mate will be, because the assumption is it's going to be Biden, who stood up on the stage, and the only time they mentioned anything black was they were each trying to outdo each other, said, I have black support and I have black support. And Biden stood there and said, I have more black support than any of you or all of you combined. I think older black voters will heavily lean towards Biden. You know, black people have been protesting against Warren. You know, Mayor Pete doesn't even have support in his own community. I mean, you can go down the line on that. So if you want to engage and excite the black vote, Biden needs to bring in a black running mate.
I mean, but
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, no. I can't, I wouldn't necessarily, I respectfully disagree with that. I think it's going to come down to who speaks to our issues. You have to speak to our issues. Around this country in black communities, it's void of investment, it's void of redevelopment. And I'm not talking about the redevelopment that mayors and aldermen have, you know, in their redevelopment authorities. I'm talking about with visions that the community is asking for. And so when you look at even like a community like Milwaukee, with over 200,000 African Americans that live in the central city, right? And when you look at the central city and you realize if any of those people in that community want to go to the movies, they have to leave that community.
Right.
If they want to go bowling, they have to leave that community. If they want to go roller skating, they have to leave that community. If they want to go to a nice restaurant, they got to leave that community. If they want to do things as simple, or let me go back and say, if we want to do things as simple as going to Chuck E. Cheese, we have to leave our community. Mm-hmm. And so to have a community where that is just void of any real economic vitality, and you know, it's here and there, and it's child care, and it's barbershops, and it's beauty salons and home health care agencies, and so there's a certain type of business that exists in our community. But when you talk about real robust economic development, where that plan is, that's what you need to speak to for the black vote, not just in Milwaukee, but in central cities around this country.
And I think that's why Bernie Sanders does so well here, more specifically when he talks about issues like health care, affordable health care. when you're speaking about black businesses, a lot of folks aren't able to start businesses or willing to leave their jobs to start businesses because they can't afford to pay for their own health care. They can't afford to pay for their employees' health care. And so when I talk about issues being more important, I don't think it's going to be a black VP that's going to engage the voters.
I'm still praying.
I think it's going to be someone that's absolutely speaking to the issues and showing a true vision on how to improve people's everyday lives.
So are you hearing, but it sounds like you're not hearing that you don't think you're hearing that from any of the Democratic candidates, or at least the big 4+1.
See, that's the value of the black candidate I'm talking about. I mean, put Castro in there. He was talking about police brutality.
Absolutely.
He was talking about some of those concrete issues. Some of the other candidates just come off being elitist, looking down. Who talked about education? And Milwaukee is home for the educational revolution with school choice. And yet you have candidates who actually have publicly just said the union vote is more important than the black vote. I mean, we need to be honest about that. We are stuck in a situation where we just don't have any options. But the key is going to be, will there be enthusiasm to pull that turnout, to pull those young black millennials and those people who don't traditionally vote that Barack Obama pulled? I don't see it yet.
I see something.
Go ahead, yeah, please.
I think I see something different. Instead of waiting for a candidate to speak to our issues, we need a candidate that's going to listen to us when we speak, because we actually are living the life and we see the disparities. And a candidate that's going to take black voices as credible ones and take what we say when they come to our cities and they do their rallies, are they going to take what we are saying, we've been saying for generations, and put that into policy instead of waiting for someone to just echo what we already know? I guess that's what I'm waiting for. But the priority certainly is beating Donald Trump. But we cannot forget, if we have a Republican-controlled Senate, it does not matter who the president is. So I'm looking for a candidate who can obviously defeat Donald Trump, but also who can get us 4 more Democrats elected in the U.S. Senate, assuming the House majority stays the same. And then and only then can we move forward.
Is there, I mean, it's interesting, we're talking around the table, I mean, too many times, a lot of times in Washington we talk about, the African-American vote or the black vote. This is a complicated city with a lot of different sorts of people living here. I mean, look, it looks like we're down to 4+1, I guess, if we include Amy Klobuchar, that are in the Democratic top tier right now. Is there one that's better for motivating different parts of the base in Milwaukee? Does it? I mean, when you talk about generating the enthusiasm, can you generate the enthusiasm with just one candidate? Is it when you look at the 5 that are there now? Is there like this candidate does well with this group of people, this candidate does well with this group of people, or how do you do that?
I think Biden might be the person who, when he gets Barack Obama speaking on his behalf, I think that's going to be helpful. But I don't think we should even throw out Bloomberg, because there's been talk about him being the dark horse. I don't know if that's an appropriate way to put it, but they're talking about some of his policies, stop and frisk, etc. But there was a lot of black support for that. It's like with Clinton, he came up with that crime bill, which was a racist crime bill, but black congressmen voted for it. Bloomberg could change this whole political paradigm, because there is an element of support for him among middle-class black folks.
He's trying to buy the election.
Like just gonna.
He came in late.
Has the money.
He's paying state directors ungodly amounts of money. He's purchasing their support. The thing about Biden, who is the candidate that I'm more likely to support, is he angers the progressives. In fact, I'm so nervous that if Biden becomes a nominee, which it appears he will be, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to stay home. And everybody says, vote blue no matter who. No, they're not. They're not going to.
I don't think we'll see a repeat of 2016. I think there's this, and I think that goes to the Bernie or bust sort of narrative. I think people understand that there's more implications today, and the vote is important, the elections are important. That's why I think also the local elections are important. But if we look at the candidates, and the reason why I support Bernie is because you look at his base, 5 million new individual donors. He raised $4 million in 2 days after the debate. He has the largest millennial base. He has the largest person of color base. No one's talking about that. He has people of all backgrounds supporting him, whereas Warren, who's a progressive, her voters tend to be very educated and more affluent. And that doesn't speak to everyday people. I've knocked on thousands of doors. I've worked with organizations that have knocked thousands of doors, and overwhelmingly we want someone that's going to go in and change things. And I think that's why Trump won Wisconsin. It's because they thought that, okay, he will change things, he will shake things up. They don't want an Obama repeat.
If Biden gets the nomination, I mean,
I would absolutely support.
And do you get the sense from other people who support Bernie they feel the same way?
I think so.
And I supported Bernie in 16, and I was laughed at. I wouldn't support him now. I guess the best one would probably be Biden right now for me. And Warren has come off. You know, there's been black folks following her around the country, criticizing her for her attacks on educational options for poor people. You know, she came off as an elitist. Biden today, to me, is somebody who doesn't listen. He doesn't listen to black people.
And I think his polling has remained consistent, whereas other candidates have either surged or, you know, overcome some of those gaps. And I think it speaks to the whole Biden and Obama dynamic. Obama has not come out for Biden.
He isn't coming for anybody.
And I don't think he will.
You don't think so?
Do you hear? I mean, what are you hearing from them?
Sure. I mean, the trepidation is that people are fearful of what's going to happen. But what I've been hearing is that people will change this time and get behind the nominee no matter what, the Democrat nominee. That's the key. And so we've been pushing from the angle that please just vote. You know, again, with the recent court order attempt to purge 200,000 votes in Milwaukee.
Yeah, 250,000.
Yeah, that's a concern. And so that was, fortunately, the Court of Appeals did put a halt on that. But our push has been, let's vote. You know, we can fix things later, we can talk to them, but get behind the nominee right now.
Bernie was a good candidate versus Hillary Clinton, and I would be a progressive if there were no Republicans.
Is there? That actually brings us one question I really did want to ask you. Look, we spent a lot of time talking about uniting, turning out the African American vote, uniting it behind the Democratic candidate. But President Trump says he has growing support among African American voters. You're here. You're in the community. What do you see? What do you hear? I mean,
he had 4 and now he has 5.
I think it's stronger than that. And I also hear a lot of folks talking about the economy. Look, I know it does not work for everybody, but somebody bought a house in the last 4 years. Somebody got a promotion in the last 4 years. Somebody got a raise in the last 4 years. And so if they attribute any economic success to this current president, I think that's troublesome from the Democratic nominee because a strong economy is really, really tough to beat.
Yeah.
Did that begin with President Obama, though?
Absolutely. I'm also worried for when this economy crashes because they are cyclical. Right. Is Donald Trump the right president to have in office when we go into a deep recession and one is looming?
Exactly.
And so what do you do? Do you just sit back and ignore the idleness that exists in central cities, again, around this country? You have to redevelop central cities around this country. You want to bring back, you want to get unemployment to its lowest, redevelop central cities. You want to get these construction companies and firms work, redevelop central cities, right? Redevelop them around this country because there's enough work that needs to be done. There are enough people that are looking to start businesses that they could build around the infusion of redevelopment into these communities, that you can bring these communities, you can improve the quality of life that we're all looking for. Because we deserve the same quality of life in the black community that others have in their communities. And I argue that all the time. But again, when you're sitting back and you're just saying, well, I'm concerned about everybody, when we know that there's an unbalanced playing field. And you're going to have to admit that the black communities around this country have been left to their own devices, to our own devices for generations. That has to change. And don't even talk about it. And you're going to find out that you're going to get the same thing that you got the last time you lost, you're going to get this time. Because I don't know who I'm voting for at this point. But I know that I'm looking for somebody that when they talk, I recognize myself in what they're saying. And in many of these instances, I don't hear them talking to me.
Does that mean Donald Trump's still on the table for you?
Oh.
The question is, who is going to put the energy into redeveloping central cities around this country, right? You want the people's votes, you're going to have to bring something to the table. That's just, we all know that's how it works.
Absolutely.
So is Donald Trump...
Oh, just say it. He's still on the table for you, right?
Well, let me say that there are billions of dollars that are offshore that can be reinvested in central cities around this country, and it will not only put the African American community back to work, but it will help many white firms that are also looking to fill their pipeline with work, right? Somebody has a way to reach those corporations and those people with all of this money and say, let's reinvest in our central cities around this country. That's how you talk to the black vote.
Yeah.
All this other stuff.
Part of the
you're
problem
talking
right
about-
now is something Sherwin said, and you tied into as well. Can we get beyond the lies? For example, Trump was saying, earlier this week that we have the lowest unemployment rate in history, and he said black folks too. The reality is the black unemployment rate in Milwaukee is 54% for black men between the ages of 18 and 105. It's been that way for the last decade. This is according to University of Wisconsin research. So when they keep saying we have record unemployment, who are you talking about?
Exactly. Additionally, and then let's look at it. Yeah, unemployment may be low nationally, but what type of jobs are being filled? Is low wage
It's
work.
service industry.
It's service industry jobs. It's fast food work. It's people having to work 2 and 3 jobs so they can just pay their bills, so they can just buy the meal to put on their table. That's why unemployment is low, because folks can't work just one job and be able to go home and enjoy their communities.
John, you were gonna
Sure. Just in regards to the investing back in the community, that's my concern with the DNC happening in Milwaukee. It's great, it's exciting. However, how much of that $200 million is going to come back to the north side, the south side? That's our concern. It's great that you're having us here, but how much is going to be reinvested back into our communities?
Absolutely.
I just really quickly, and then we got to wrap this up. I know that's a big mission of yours, Ruben. I mean, that's something around the table. That's a test for the Democrats, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of this larger debate with the convention coming here.
Absolutely.
What can you do to help out the community?
Exactly.
Oh, it's a test for the Democrats, but it's also a test for the local elected officials.
Absolutely.
Again, all the meetings that they're having, all of the positioning that people are doing, it's amazing how much we still don't know, right? And they don't want people to know when certain decisions have been made, because the opportunities are there for those of us that can get into the room, right? And sometimes even being in the room, there's other things going on that we don't always understand. And so it's a test. And again, from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint, I'm telling my members, and I'm telling look, I will let you know everything I know as I find out, right? But again, you also talk to the people that you know to find out things, and we come together and we're trying to figure out where it is and what's going on. And we got people in elected offices who we're looking to also let us know what's going on, because sometimes if you're not in the room, as they say,
Right.
you're on the menu.
I agree, and it's not just making sure that the vendors are black owned, or that the venue spaces of black owned businesses are being utilized. It's also making sure, for instance, the Pfizer Forum, where the convention will be held, where a majority of those workers are people of color from the north side of Milwaukee, is making sure they're paid a good wage as they're serving and interacting with these dignitaries, making sure that they can go back to their communities and pump into their own economy.
And I also hope for the churches that will stand up and be able to make a voice and make some impact to this DNC as well. One thing about the Bible is that whenever God sent a king, he sent a prophet. And so the prophet was there to tell the truth, to make them do right, to speak up when it's wrong. And so that's the church's voice, to make sure that we can hold individuals accountable.
Well, it's going to be a busy couple months. Thank you all for joining us. It's really been a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe, and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.